Hello, everybody. Oh, people are still joining. I'm sorry. I'm too early. I know in music, you're never supposed to start on time. Once when I was on tour, the rule was always, if it was a 7:30 p.m. concert, you started at 7:34, right? That was the rule, always. And then there was one day, and I was in Argentina, and I was just like sitting there, doing nothing, waiting. I was with Ashley Beecham, actually, I think. And we were just sitting waiting to start, and it was like 7:32 or something like that. And this guy came running up to us and he was screaming. He's like, "It's 7:32, you must go on now." And that's the only time in my life I ever had that. I don't know why I remembered this story, just because it's now 2:01 and we're supposed to start, sorry, 3 o'clock Eastern time, it's 2 o'clock my time. So I'm starting on time, but I'm not really supposed to in the world of music. I feel like we should always start 2 minutes late so that everyone is here. Great. Nice to see you all here. First of all, as always, I want to say thank you to Flute World, and Mark is here from Flute World. Honestly, the amount of resources that Flute World are giving us now as a community of flute players, I think there is nothing that compares to it. Actually, I was thinking about this morning. I have been dealing with Flute World for a while now, initially as a customer, but then later they are the US stockist of my book. So although I don't deal with them direct about that, I was very aware of that. And then when Mark came running up to me in the trade hall of the NFA convention in Chicago, he's like, "Hey, we're going to do some stuff together." And I thought, yeah, whatever, that'll never work out, because as musicians, how many times a week do you hear things like this? And then here we are. He literally did run. I was at NFA for one day. I went in, played my recital and left because I had had a crazy year and I wanted to go to the beach. I'm not allowed to tell that to the NFA, but that was actually the reality. So I came in, played my concert, Katie and I went for lunch, and then I went off to the beach. Anyway, I went into the trade hall very briefly to see if there was any copies of my book at Flute World. And I just crossed the threshold into the huge Flute World booth. And Mark came running up, and we'd never met. He's like, "I need to give you a hug." That was my first memory of Mark. And now I think he's fantastic. And he's doing great things at Flute World. And Flute World are doing great things. And look at all these amazing classes we're getting. I'm constantly seeing all these new books that they're having stocking that no one else has. I just saw Jasmine Choi's new version of Tafnel and Gobert. Very interested to see that. I weirdly have my own version of Tafnel and Gobert, which my students call Tafnel and Stobert. Because I change all the exercises to suit ourselves. So I'm very curious to see Jasmine's version, because I think Jasmine has some excellent ideas. So I encourage you all to go look at their website, because I just saw it this morning that Jasmine Choi's new version of Tafnel and Gobert is there. And I think she's extended all the ranges, which is what I think is really great. Cool. So already things are popping in. I'm terrible at looking at this chat. Anyway, thank you very much, Flute World. I was not supposed to go on a huge thing about that. I just wanted to say how grateful I am for everything you're doing for us all as flute players at the moment. So I do one class a month for Flute World, and it's called Prep Your Rep, which is still the greatest name ever for an online flute class, I think. I'd love to say I came up with that, but I did not. Matthew Allison at Flute World came up with that name. But I think, or it was possibly Mark, I'm not sure. Anyway, this week is all about orchestral excerpts. So far, we have covered Mozart Concerti for auditions, Bach sonatas, French repertoire, etudes for the Texas All-State. This week, I thought, let's do some work on orchestral excerpts, because this is something so many flute players are constantly working on. Next month, by the way, is a live Prep Your Rep. I will be in the Charlotte store is Charlotte North Carolina or South Carolina? North? I think it's North. I don't know.
North Carolina. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I will be in Charlotte in North Carolina for something else. And so we managed to time it. So next week's class, or next month's class, which is an open masterclass, will be live in the store, and everyone is free to come. There are no charge for the tickets at all. All the slots for performers are already filled, I'm afraid, but we will take as many auditors as we can squeeze into the store. So if you want to pop your camera on, I would love it. You don't have to, but I just think it's nice that we all see each other. So I am looking through the list. This happens sometimes. The performers are not here, which is slightly peculiar. Have any of you guys signed up to play? No, I didn't think you have, because I was looking at the names. This is something we're going to have to figure out, because people sign up, take a performer slot, and then don't come into the class, and it stops other people signing up for them. You don't have to play. Would anyone like to play? You don't have to. I have a plan of what we will do if no one wants to play, because we're talking about orchestral lectures. So I have my trusty Genie Backstresser orchestral excerpt book. It's absolutely destroyed. The covers have fallen off it because I've been using it for years and years. What I also have is it's stuffed full of full parts. So for example, when I played Daphnis for the first time, I cheekily copied all the stuff. because it doesn't appear in the orchestral excerpt book. And quite often, in recent years, it's been a while since I've taken an audition. It's not something I wanted to do for ages. I was very happy doing what I was doing and didn't want to change job. But some of my students have been taking them, and often now you are asked to play full parts of pieces. This is something that's changed a lot. When I was 24, 5, I won my job in the orchestra, which was an opera orchestra. It was a full-time opera orchestra and a touring orchestra, but we still played most of the same excerpts back then. We did do some opera excerpts for the audition, but mostly the standard ones. When I left that orchestra 3.5 years later, I didn't play in an orchestra for 9 years, literally did not. I was doing other things. And then I was invited over to Vietnam to play guest principal with the Sun Symphony, which is like the National Orchestra of Vietnam. And I was really nervous about doing it, but I wanted to do it. So I went, and it was a great program. It was very flutey. We did Rachmaninoff Third Piano Concerto. We did Tombeau de Couperin. Sorry, I couldn't think what that was called, by Ravel. And then we also did Mother Goose. So it's very, very fluty. If you know Mother Goose, tons and tons of flute solos in this. And I loved it, and I had such a good time, and I enjoyed it, and they were such a nice orchestra, much nicer than the one I had worked in many, many years earlier. They were really grumpy. And I decided I wanted to play a bit more orchestra. So I started to accept a few more invitations and guested in like the National Symphony in the UK and a few things. And then I took my first audition in 10 years, well, it'll be 12 years at that point. And I realized that the way auditions were happening 12 years later, 13 years later, was actually slightly different to what had happened when I was a young flute player taking my first auditions. And people were now asking for much more extensive parts of the pieces. For example, when I took that audition in 2019, it might have been, and that was for the RTE Concert Orchestra in Ireland, of which I trialed but then didn't win the job. But they wanted the entire, I'm sure it was that orchestra, they wanted the entire final movement of classical symphony, not just the little solo, for example. I've also recently, some of my students have done things in Daphnis where they want all the noodles at the beginning, all the sunrise, the entire thing, not just the famous solo. And also in Daphnis, I've now seen the final movement appear a lot as well. So if anyone here is serious about taking some professional auditions, I appreciate we have a real mix of people, so I'm not going to hammer on about taking professional auditions. But if anyone is serious about taking professional auditions, be ready for that, because this is something that the world of flute playing is really seeming to jump onto. And there's a lot of new excerpts that are appearing. For example, often now I'm seeing Harry Potter. You know, you know the one I'm talking about. If you've ever tried to play that, you will be very pleasantly surprised. It's a lot easier than it sounds, in my personal feeling. You know, a lot of people think Voliere from Carnival of the Animals is the hardest. I think Voliere is way harder than Harry Potter. So don't panic if Harry Potter's there. A little bit of slow metronome practice is going to sort that one out pretty quickly. Would be interested in playing, but I never know when my grand dog is going to start barking. Oh, that's all right. We love a good dog on Flute World Collective. Regina, where are you on my screen? Regina, oh, you're up there. Great, Regina, just unmute yourself. If you were to play, what do you want to play? I still want to talk about some stuff, but I will definitely let you play.
Well, what are you interested in teaching? I've played a lot of them.
It's your time. You do whatever you want. You choose.
Let me go get my Jean Beckstresser book. I'll be right back.
Perfect. Perfect timing. Hey, Regina, before you go, just pop yourself on mute for me, will you?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so the reason I say all this is because I would be going and collecting as many full parts as possible now and just stuffing your book full. When I was an undergrad student, we used to use the Trevor Y orchestral excerpt books. I don't think in the US they're so popular. There's 2 volumes, they're quite fat. They're very handy because they have tons and tons of stuff, way more than this had. Sorry, I know that doesn't look like the Genie Backstretcher book, but it is way more than this has. However, there's a lot of misprints in Trevor's book, and everybody knows this. So you have to be a little bit careful, because if you turn up to an audition and you're playing wrong notes, that is pretty much going to be a problem. I know a lot of people say we don't mind a wrong note in an audition, and I think that's true. And when I sit on audition panels, I really do feel like that. But see, if they're happening a lot, then I do mind. So 1 wrong note is fine, 25 wrong notes, I'm cutting you. I don't mean to sound rude about it, but that's what's going to happen. So we have to be careful because we can't really be having wrong notes all the time in work. It happens, of course it happens, but really it would get annoying if I'm sitting beside someone who's playing wrong notes all the time. And when I play wrong notes all the time, I know it annoys them. So it's just worth bearing in mind. If you have the Trevor Y books, they're a fantastic resource, but double check all the notes because there are a lot of issues in that book, but it's a great resource. There's also, I have all these books in the UK, although I've stolen them currently for the Flute Professor. The John Wommer books, are fantastic. I have these are not that expensive and they come in tons of volumes and they're a little more expensive than Jeannie Baxter's book because they give you quite full parts. Not complete parts, but full. So you can get like all the Beethoven symphonies, all the Mozart symphonies, the Brahms symphonies, is there a Shostakovich one, the Mendelssohn symphonies, all that kind of stuff. I recommend the John Wommer books and the other books which are great. Although
maybe Mark will know this, but when last I checked, the Wommer books were out of print. And I've lost my volume 1, so I need to find another one.
Well, I actually bought the entire set in a used bookstore many years ago. So they are definitely kicking about. eBay, if I go for Flute World. I absolutely do. And also Flute World have the perk match thing, so you can get the discount straight away, which I've been using tons of recently because I bought some Piccolo books. But when things are out of print, I do buy it on eBay. Just recently, I bought something on eBay. Oh, it was an edition of Anderson Opus 21, and the particular edition is out of print. And I found it for like $7 on eBay. Sure, it's got some scribbling in it. I don't love it, but it is useful to have. The other books which are very good, but I think they are at print as well, is the Wilfred Smith books. We'll check. But there's lots and lots of versions. But if you're just going to buy one for the big solos, I think the Jeannie Baxter book is the best. Yeah, Mark's written about perk match there. It's great. It just gets you tons of money off your books. So it's worth using. So what I'm going to do before Regina plays, I want to talk very quickly, and you know I like to talk, and I say very quickly, but it'll probably be very slowly, about some of these excerpts and how I have approached them as a flute player. But actually, maybe what might be a bit more useful is how I have approached them as a committee member, as a panel member, listening for a flute player. Now here, I was thinking about this just yesterday when I was thinking about this class. I always say, you know, I have lots to say as a committee member because I've sat on several committees, but actually I have never sat on a committee hiring a principal flute because that was my job. I've only ever sat on a committee hiring a second flute, a principal piccolo, or subs. And I was like, huh, that's kind of interesting. I have never, ever been on a committee looking for a principal flute player. So I really believe that the way we have to play these in an edition is a little bit different to how we might play them in real life for lots of reasons. And also the way we might play them if you're going for a principal flute job is probably a little bit different to how we might play them going for a second flute job. And I am very aware of that. I have only ever once gone for a second flute job, and I didn't get anywhere with it. I actually don't think I'm a bad second flute, but I don't think I was very intelligent in the edition to realize I maybe had to give them what they wanted rather than being the soloist that deep down I wanted to be. So I have to be a little careful at that. There are certain excerpts that will pop up in every edition, whether you're going for principal flute, sub, assistant principal, principal piccolo, second, it doesn't matter. For example, L'après-midi, Afternoon of the Faun, as you call it in America, will crop up everywhere. Everywhere. Often it's the first thing on the list. So let's talk about Prélude à l'après-midi d'un Faun. I have seen it where you just have the first line, which is the unaccompanied line. I have also seen it where you have the first line, maybe a second bit, and then a bit at the end. And I have also seen it where you have the complete part, and they expect you to play the complete part. Now, the reality is we don't have enough time to hear the complete part, but prepare it anyway. I have also done it where I did a sub edition when I was still a student for the Halley Orchestra in Manchester, and we played it as a duet. The principal flute played some of the bits with me in the edition, and I got on the sub list by doing that. This is quite common now. Lots of principal flutes will play with the second flute in the edition. I've seen it happening a lot. I've done it loads. I think it's a great way to see if the sounds will blend. So practice with your friends on Prélude à l'après-midi, and practice getting it good. And the same with Daphnis at the introduction. Do that there. Practice with your friends so that you know how it's going to fit with other flute players if you have an edition coming up. Now, of course, let's open a can of worms. Give me a wave if you have ever in real life or just noodling around at home in practice played through this first solo in Prélude à l'après-midi. Debussy. Nobody's played it. Couple of you, about half of you. I expected some people to have done it. Give me a wave if you take a breath. Give me a wave if you do not take a breath. Okay, so half and half. Half people don't take a breath, half the people do. This is the most divisive solo in the flute playing history. I'm going to just show you, for those of you who don't know what one I'm talking about, is this one. I won't play the whole thing because we'll be here forever. You know the one? Yeah. So a lot of people in the olden days, when I was a kid in the olden days, expected this in one breath. And it freaked people out because some people struggle to do it in one breath and some people don't. I have played it both ways in real life, actually several times both ways in real life. And when I'm on an audition panel, I really don't care if they take a breath or not. What I really want is beautiful sound and expression. However, having said that, most people take the breath here. And I hate it there. I absolutely hate it there. 95% of people that are going to take a breath in Lapre will take it there. And I think that is the most stupid place to take the breath, if I'm to be honest. I don't mind if people do it. Like, I'm not going to stop them getting the job because of it. But I do sometimes think they haven't thought this through. They're just doing what everybody else does or what their teachers told them to do. And that is not me as a flute player. I question everything anyone ever tells me. And used to drive some of my teachers nuts, but I'm glad I did because it allows you to come to your own decisions. Often they are the same decisions as your teachers, but sometimes not. If you're going to take a breath, I actually like it here. I'll play it all. I'm sorry, it's going to take up time, but I'll do it. Obviously a quiet breath, but I'm just trying to show you the breath. This to me makes so much more sense musically. I mean, if you can do it in one, great. Your other option is to do it here. So there's options. And for me, if we were to play those three, the worst option is I don't know, just my taste. So I know there'll be many on Principal Flute who will shoot me down for telling you that, but I just don't like it there. I don't think it's a sensible place musically. I don't think it's a sensible place technically. And the reason being, because if we are going to take a breath, I want to disguise it. I want to disguise it between the other notes, and that's a hard place to disguise. Or we get Did you hear my breath that time? I'm not sure if you did or not, because it's easier to disguise between the E and the G sharp. Did you hear it? I don't know. I can't even hear it, but I'm definitely taking one. So for me, I like it. Also, the reason I think this is a good place is because da da dee dee. The next note's a G sharp. It's an easy note. Da dee. You don't really have to worry too much about the embouchure. What happens when we breathe? The embouchure moves. That's always our biggest problem with breathing, I think. So we need a note that doesn't require enormous amounts of embouchure control on the next note. Da da dee dee. da, da. The G sharp will come out whatever you do. So I like it there. It's just a personal thing, and I'm always interested to see how other people do it. The other thing I am absolutely listening for, and if you have your book or this music in front of you, open it and you'll see what I'm talking about. Measures 1, 2, 3. The third measure, the same bit, has a crescendo underneath it. It's the only bit that has a crescendo underneath it. And how many times do we hear people that say this, that play this? That's not what Debussy wrote. That's not what he wrote. Also, that A sharp, do not be flat because the oboe takes it over and they will not be flat. So we have to be very careful about that note. Anyway, that's my thoughts about the solo. And the only other thing I would say is, I think it's really important with this solo, how are we doing for time? Not good, that we hear the harmony already underneath this solo, even though it's just you. And I'll show you why, because the very last note of the first measure is a B sharp, and the second note is a C sharp, which is kind of interesting. And I know there's all these like enharmonic reasons for doing that and theoretical reasons for doing it, but I feel there's something magical going from the B sharp to the C sharp. And often people miss it, so they'll do something like this. But what about if something like this happened? And so on. So this is just my thoughts about that solo. I don't think we should be so scared about it. Of course, we need to take a good breath. A little trick I do for this solo, I have no idea why it works, but I think it works, is that, I can't believe I'm telling you this, I always like hold some of these tricks back sometimes, but I'm going to tell you. I take a breath in with a curled tongue. I don't know why, but it allows me to last longer. So if I just go, I can't last as long, but if I go, I will last longer. And it's the only time I do it. I don't take a breath in with a curled tongue in any other piece, but I do it at the beginning of this. And I also blow out before I play, just a little bit. The conductor will be walking out, and usually what happens is they walk out, everyone's clapping, they'll take a bow, they'll turn around, your heart will be going boom, 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 like crazy. And they usually just go, and you play. Only once in my entire life did the conductor try and conduct it out, and it was a conducting student in one of their assessments, and I said, I am so sorry, please do not conduct this out, this is really not a good idea. And they were like, oh, I'm sorry, and they didn't. I'm sure in the olden days, there's a video of a Karajan, I think, conducting the Berlin Phil, and he's like, no, 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 but no one does that anymore. So they'll just go play, and you just get ready. So as they're walking out, I'm going, blowing out. And it's over that quickly, and then you can relax for the rest of the piece because that's the hard bit done. So L'après-midi is something that I think everyone should look at, because even if you're never going to take an edition or you're never going to play it, there's a lot we can learn from this solo. It's a very interesting little solo. And there's a couple of great versions of this with a flute and piano version. I love them. I recorded one of them a while ago, and I was always scared to play it. And then when COVID hit, my friend who plays piano with me and I decided we were going to do it, because all these pieces that we had always been scared of doing, we decided we might never get to do again. So we started playing them, and actually it was a great experience. Mendelssohn Midsummer Night's Dream is another one that's going to come up pretty much in every edition you'll ever take. I don't personally find it horrendously difficult. I don't quite know why people find it incredibly difficult. I think it's more in their head than anything else. One thing I will say is, if you ever go see the ballet Midsummer Night's Dream, what is going on in this moment is not what you expect. It's a little dance, a little nymph dancing. We all play it. That is not musically what's happening. It's light. It's probably a little slower than you might expect. I've only ever played it twice in real life, and it was not done fast at all. So you have to plan your breathing, and it's pretty obvious where you're going to breathe, and you have to be ready for that. The other thing I do whenever I have anything that's articulated is I always practice it slurred as well, because I make my best sound when I slur. So I compare everything articulating to slur, and I'll just come up with little exercises, things like this. And so on. So I'm always listening to the quality of sound. I don't think it's a simple case of just tonguing all the time. Slur it as well, practice it, practice rhythms, practice whatever you need. The biggest thing I hear when people play this excerpt that's going to drop them out the edition straight away is that when the tongue gets a little tired towards the end, it starts to become dotted. Ya da 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 da. I'm always listening for that because I know it's so easy to do it. And if someone does that, I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, you shot yourself in the foot there. Classical Symphony, Prokofiev. There'll be two bits that appear in this constantly. The first is the slow movement. Basically, we'd be listening for control in the top register. But then, more important, most commonly, you'll get this bit. It's been a while since I played that. And it's all in the high register. There's a ton of different fingerings that you can use for that. In fact, there's a great set on Jennifer Clough's website. I don't know if you know Jennifer Clough. I think she's a Canadian flute player. Google it. She will show you all the alternative fingerings. It's just a case of practice. I mean, I think if you go in and that goes wrong, no one's going to not give you the job because that went wrong. William Tell, Daphnis. We should very quickly talk about Daphnis and Chloe. Probably our most enjoyed excerpt. What I can tell you about Daphnis is playing it in real life is so much more enjoyable than playing it in an edition. It's actually really good fun to play in real life. However, I often hear people coming for lessons, or I'm sitting on competitions or audition panels or whatever, and they play Daphnis, and the reason actually that they get cut is nothing to do with their flute playing. It's not to do with the quality of sound. It's not to do with their expressiveness. It's to do with the fact that they're not playing in time with the pulse. This is the underlying issue with Daphnis, because if you go look at the score, the double basses go boom, 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 constantly. And whatever you do has to fit around boom, 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 boom. It's got to all fit around there. So sure, you can take some rubato and you can take some time, but that double bass will not wait for you often. So I have seen a few people audition and it's just not in time. The first time I ever played it, I took way too much time, and the conductor was a lovely guy called Gary Walker, a very well-known British conductor, and he was like, no, you can't do that. I was very young at the time, and he explained it to me, and I learned my lesson the hard way. I was lucky that it was a lovely conductor and a young orchestra, and I got away with it. So just to be aware of that. They're the big three. Is there any other excerpt people want me to talk about before Regina plays something? What else is in this book? Bolero. Bolero comes up all the time. I don't know why. Again, I don't think it's the most challenging. However, there are two things I'm listening for, and everyone is listening on for in Bolero. The first is, are you really playing pianissimo? If you go and look at Bolero, listen to Bolero, has anybody seen Bolero played live? Never? Wow. It's an amazing thing. It's the same tune over and over. But it's just a giant crescendo. All that happens is there's a huge crescendo. That's it. The same tune that goes over and over and over, and it finishes crazily loud and it starts crazily quiet. Who's the first person to play the tune? We are. the flute. So you have to play deadly quiet, or the people that are going to come after you are in serious trouble. So remember, as a flute player, there will probably only be one or two flute players on your panel. The rest are not flute players. They're the clarinetist or the violinist or the conductor or the bassoonist or the oboe, definitely the oboist. And they'll be going, oh my God, if they play it that loud, I'm in trouble. So you have to play it really quiet, quieter than you think I'm talking about right now, to the point where you almost can't hear it. And incredibly importantly, the pulse again cannot change, because the snare drum never stops in the entire piece, and it goes da, 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 da. That's it, and it starts deadly quiet and gets louder and louder and louder for 15 minutes, but it never changes. So you have to be absolutely in time with the snare drum. There is no place for rubato in bolero at all. Absolutely in time. And the place that people will go out of time is in the rests. You know, and things like second measure where it goes ya da da da, they'll be late coming back in, guarantee it. So really spend time. It looks easy, it's not as easy perhaps as it sounds. Peter and the Wolf, fine. Bach, Aus Lieb. That was what someone said. Oh, Brahms 4 is all about being expressive. I want someone to be incredibly expressive. There's a fantastic video on YouTube of Brahms 4 of Kirsten McCall, who's a friend of mine, who is the principal flute of the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra in Amsterdam, amazing orchestra. And what's so great about this video is it's a conducting class, but they're playing this moment from Brahms 4, so he plays it over and over again with this conducting student, and he takes so much time, and it's just like, for me, the masterclass was listening to him play, not the conducting student. It's really amazing. People, in my opinion, play Brahms 4 a little too straight, and I don't think it should be so straight. Aus Lieb, the Bach solo from St. Matthew's Passion, again, pulse is very important. It's accompanied by two oboe decaccias, which are kind of like giant oboes, and they just go boom, 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 constantly, and you have to play around that. But for me, what I'm listening for is understanding Baroque style and understanding how to make a different sound. That's what I would want to hear if someone was playing that solo. So every excerpt is chosen because it has something. It has something which will highlight something. And we have to be intelligent about it. We can't just play the right notes in the right place. That's not enough. We have to mold ourselves into fitting in the machine of the orchestra. That's my feeling about it anyway. And if you think about what your job responsibilities are for the audition, and then you try and convey that in the way you play, then you'll have a really good shot at passing through. Of course, once you're in the orchestra, you still have to pay attention to those things, but you have a bit more freedom to be you. That's my feeling. Other people may say something different, but that is my feeling. Okay, Regina, what are you going to play for us?
Well, you kept, I was like, I'm not playing that. I'm not playing that. Not playing that. Actually, but I was going to play Brahms 4. So.
Please do Brahms 4. Please definitely do it. Because it's
all right. All right. I'm not in a boomy room, so we'll see what happens. Okay. Right. Can you hear me? Good.
Have you got your original sound on? Put your original sound on.
Original sound. What do you want me to do?
Oh, it's fine. It might work fine. Just if you just play a few notes and I'll tell you.
Okay.
You'll need to press your original sound. If you look at the top left of the screen, it says original for musicians. You might need to move your mouse to get it to appear.
I'm on an iPad.
Oh. Is there a sound settings or anything like that?
It's on the iPad, but it's pretty hidden.
Help us, Sean.
Is it under more?
It's easier to find before you join, but I did find a way to get there. Let's see, it is in there though. Just have to dig around a bit.
Hang on, while Sean's helping that, I'm just reading the chat. Back on the manuscript, so I hear from students that their professors are demanding the last section in one breath. But when I hear them play it, they tend to play it too fast. So they make, yes, absolutely. People often will play the manuscript so faster in the edition so that there's no issue with breathing. I mean, I would, if somebody came in and played it really fast, I'll just ask them to play it slow. I always got asked to play excerpts in a different way in editions. Breath-wise, here's where I would recommend you take it. I'm sorry, I have not played this in about 2 years, so there will be wrong notes, but I'll try for you. Breathe. And that's it. That's the last breath to the end. So you have to do the big one. You can snatch from there, and you're at the end. So yeah, there's really only 3 breaths. Any more than that, and it's just not going to work, is my feeling. But I've never heard, like, so yeah, the end should be 1 breath, actually. I agree with those professors. The other thing to say, and this is, I got to be careful what I say, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's been an interesting experience. I'm now in the US, and I live here full time now. I've been here for 18 months, and in August I start as professor of flute, like a full-time professorship at Northwestern State University. I didn't want to be on tour anymore. I spent the last 15 years of my life on tour, and I really wanted to have an easier life. So I came here to get a teaching position because we don't have them in the UK and Europe. Full-time teaching jobs don't exist. The interesting thing, there's some great flute teachers out there, but there's also some not so experienced flute teachers out there. And if I am going to learn how to play the orchestral literature, I want to learn from someone who's played it. I don't mean played it in a classroom, but I mean played it. And that is kind of the problem with not all the professors, is I sometimes think, what have they done? Because, you know, the DMA, the doctoral program here in the US, is a bit of a problem. I've just had to get mine to get this job. I did mine in 18 months. I'm in the building right now where I studied at the University of Alabama. Got in, did it, got out, got my job just before I graduated. But I find there's many teachers, I have to be very careful what I say about this, but there's many teachers who maybe will do their undergrad, do their masters, do their DMA, get a job. That's it. It was a little different for me. I don't have a master's degree. I did my undergrad, I won my job. I spent 18 years working full time as a professional flute player and then got my teaching job. So I feel there's some real life world experience I can share.
Original audio on
A lot of real world experience and will be fantastic. And there's many teachers who don't have real world experience and are still fantastic teachers. But these things are different. This is not the same as playing, you know, Valerie Coleman's butterfly piece or whatever. This is different. There's a lot going on in this music, and these excerpts are never going to be performed as pieces on a stage as a concert. They're here for a purpose. And
Open Zoom app.
that purpose is to examine you to see how you would fit into the orchestra. And if someone has never done that, how do they understand what to listen for? I don't know. It's a thought I sometimes have. So we have to be a little selective and careful about these things. As I say, I have to be very careful what I say in my thoughts about these, because I don't want to disrespect anyone, but I have experienced it firsthand in traveling around the US and listening to people playing excerpts, and I'm thinking, they don't understand how this works in the context of the orchestra. So it's just a little danger moment. How are you getting on there, Regina? Any luck? Oh, I'm so sorry. Because I was talking, you guys had to do this all by by typing in the chat. That's terrible. While we wait for Regina, we'll give her a couple of minutes. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask about anything? It doesn't have to be research. How are you doing, Regina? All sorted?
I might have it done. Maybe. I'll play a couple notes, see what happens. Okay.
What happens? Let's do it.
Okay. Did that work?
I can hear you perfectly. Okay, so we're going to do the 4th movement of Brahms 4, the big flute solo.
All righty.
Yes, fantastic. Okay. Your sound was like backing off a little bit. The microphone's doing some funny stuff. We can still hear you. It just gets distant at the odd bit. So, but I can tell what you're doing. So I know everyone else listening can as well. Very nice, actually. The style is great. Really great. There's a couple of things I can suggest that would definitely help. First of all, where does the actual solo begin?
The 3-2.
Yeah, so I think you have to show that a bit more in terms of not so much with the sound that you do at the solo, but with the sound that you do before.
Yeah, yeah.
The very beginning, I've actually seen this excerpt in editions where you just start at the solo.
Yeah.
I've seen other times where it starts on the little descending scale, and I've seen it other times where it starts where you start. So you have to be ready for all three. But the bit before, well, you tell me, at the 3/4 section with the triplets, what's going on there? Who else are you playing with?
Ugh, I knew you were going to ask that. It's been so long. I mean, it's just like very light strings, right?
Yeah, it's
I
with the
mean,
violins. It's with the
yeah,
violins.
yeah, yeah,
Well, everyone should know this because I have been asked in editions, what's going on here? Like
yeah.
people, yeah, you're doubling the violins. And then what about the descending scale?
I really don't remember this. I went to school. I have a master's degree in flute performance, and it's like a factory. You just learn the excerpts, and they don't really ask you what's going on. So, you know,
One thing we're going to take away from this is
yeah, yeah.
I'm not being difficult, I promise you, but
No, no, you're right. You're right. That's why I'm here.
the descending scales with the clarinets.
Mhm.
So tell me, what is the biggest difference between us and a clarinet?
Uh,
In terms of our
well,
sound?
I think our sound's prettier, but I mean, personally, I think that I think it's easier for us to play soft. I don't know. If that's the answer you're looking for. I've always really pushed myself to do that diminuendo really a
There's
lot.
something in the fundamental sound of a flute, the way we play it anyway, and the sound of a clarinet that's very different,
Mm.
which is vibrato.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Clarinets can do vibrato in jazz and stuff, they'll use it, and occasionally in a big orchestral solo they might use it. But in the woodwind section, in the team of woodwinds, we are really the only ones who play with huge vibrato. Sure, they all add it in at times, but the flute vibrato can be excessive. And in America, we'll have a good load of vibrato. It's a little different in Europe. We are a little more light with our vibrato types.
hmm
I'd be very anxious about playing really any vibrato in that descending scale because you will stick out.
okay.
Um,
I luckily don't really like playing vibrato that much, so that
okay,
works for me.
vibrato out on that scale. However, the little bit before you can play with vibrato because the violins will play with vibrato.
Okay.
But you've got to imagine they're playing with you. And it was, for my taste, a little full of rubato at this moment, which would be very hard to put with this.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, that's
yeah,
not
yeah. hmm
2, 3, plonk. Ba, 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 bum, bum, 2, 3.
So that part has to be metronomic.
You can have shape, but yeah, I wouldn't be pulling the rhythm.
It has to go with the conductor.
Yeah,
More with the conductor.
and actually, I wouldn't even be watching the conductor. I'd be listening to the violins and going with them
Okay.
as well, especially the concertmaster. And then we get to this little descending scale, which is pianissimo, which will definitely help with no vibrato. So I'll show you. And then we change the sound on the solo. I don't know if that's clear or makes sense, you can hear, but it's almost like I'm two people. And then it's a completely different sound. I have played it, well, maybe only 3 times, and I remember once, the first time, taking the breath before the solo, and then the rest of the time I never did, and I prefer it without a breath, because you're only going to go 5 notes and then you can take a breath.
I
But
agree.
I think it can be magical to just kind of come out of the orchestra. Let's try the beginning up to the solo and see if we can get this a bit more, as if we understand the context of it all.
So you want me to start at the 3-2?
At the 3/4.
At the beginning. Okay. Let me think about this for a second. Okay.
So hear the pulse in your head before you begin.
Okay.
That's the crucial thing about playing excerpts. You've got to get the tempo in your head. Good, Regina, nice. Now here's a question for you. My students tell me that I'm the most picky teacher they've ever had, and I make no apologies about it at all. Matthew, sitting here, he's just popped back into the room. He is one of my students. He will tell you that I'm really mean and horrible. What is the length of the very first note of the piece?
It is longer than the other ones.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
Why are we getting bum? Be
Yeah.
bum ba ba bum bum. That's an eighth note. Bum.
Yeah.
Be ba 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 bum bum.
Yes. You're right. You're
I
right.
am.
Okay. You may try again.
Please. I am absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Now I go, okay, so she knows how this goes. That's what I think. Okay.
It
Now,
sounds better. Yeah.
what I would also say is it's piano dolce. Yours is piano Galway, as I call it. David Galway was my teacher, so I have nothing but great respect for him. But you know, he does have a very vibrant sound. So it's a
Yeah.
little bit. But I just want.
Oh, okay.
Like you're just coloring, you're not even a solo, you're just a color on top of all the violins. That's it.
And you're gonna make me do that again. Okay. All right. I don't know if I can do that last layer. I'll try. All right, here we go.
I won't ask you to do anything you're not capable of. Beautiful. Perfect.
Keep going.
Yeah. Nice. I'm losing the sound just a little bit, but I can hear what's
All
going on. I think, I could be wrong, so tell me if I'm wrong, but I think we're getting a little bit of a bump on every note. Yum,
Yeah. Yeah.
No, clarinets don't do that. Yari.
It's fingers. It's fingers.
I
I'm
also
having finger blurbs.
you is, and actually I should have added this into the when we were discussing Prelude à la Première. The more movement, I don't have any issue with people moving when they play, by the way. Galway used to tell me off constantly for moving. He believes in standing there and not moving. I don't care too much. But I think what I do understand is that the more movement you do, the more oxygen you're burning that does not, and the more energy is going into just the physicality of moving. So I would be a little nervous about the choreography.
Yeah, yeah.
And just really. Also, I'm very much thinking of the air traveling down the flute. So I don't have to change the embouchure too much for this. The E is a very particular place, but you're getting it in the right place. And then I keep the air spinning down the tube with a good amount of velocity. And then I just kind of, I call it surfing with my fingers. I just surf on top. I don't do anything with them. I just let them smoothly caress the keys, and the flute will do all the work for you. You're overplaying the flute a little bit. Actually.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
Try that again.
Okay.
Yes, yes, much better. Much better. I can see the concentration in your face. Now,
Yeah.
now that we've got the color and the style correct, let's give it some direction. Some of my students in the UK used to say to me whenever I would sing, Stephen, you have a very special voice. And I'm like, thank you.
All right.
I have no shame in the way I sing, it's just the way it comes out.
All right. Shake. All right.
Great. Okay, Regina, thank you. I know some people are struggling to hear, but I'll explain some things because I can definitely hear it. Now, you're doing a nice job at note endings.
Yeah.
What happens? So the way it's written, if you don't have the music in front of you, for the people that don't have it, we've got quarter note, eighth note, eighth note, eighth note, eighth note, quarter note, eighth, 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 eighth note rest. Okay, that's how it goes. What's happening in the eighth note rest?
I think I'm playing right through it,
But what's
probably.
happening in the orchestra?
Oh. Yeah.
No.
Excerpt Factory. I don't know.
French horns, the violas, and the violins all go bloop. So
Oh,
it goes da 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 plonk da
okay.
dee, dee, da 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 plonk. Now, to get this kind of deep and meaningful, the violins will want to vibrate. Ya da da dee dee plonk da da da. So actually, you have to do a bit of time traveling, I call it here. You have to create space without cutting the note. And
Okay.
the way I recommend you do that is by bringing the lips forward and actually, dare I say it, vibrating just a little bit on the end. So we get.
Mm.
Rather than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
I'll try it.
Excerpts are so hard. Excerpts are so
Oh,
hard.
they are. They really are. I'm so glad I don't take auditions anymore. I don't know. Anyway.
Detail is insane. Of course, when you do this in real life in the orchestra, nothing like this. Well, I mean, we do it here in the detail, but I don't think it's anywhere near as hard as this when everyone's like listening to everything. But this is why we practice them. And I'm amazed by all these high school kids who bang through all these excerpts and they think it's just about getting the right notes in the right time. No, that's not what orchestra is.
That's what I'm talking about. It's Excerpt Factory. All
Okay.
right. Do you want me to try a little bit of that?
Yeah, and it says point blank espressivo. It should be
Yep.
heartbreaking, heartbreaking.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Good. So this is the peak of the phrase, right? The F sharp. What fingering are you using?
The old fashioned one.
Up to you. I personally would play the middle one just because I can
Yeah.
hammer a bit more. You do have some time here as well. I think as expressive as I try and play this excerpt, I also have it very planned out as to where I want to do certain things so that I don't peak, so to speak.
That's lovely. Really lovely.
I'll pass through the first round.
I don't know if it was me saying this to one of my students or one of my teachers saying it to me, but it's kind of like a leaf. Like you get to that high F and it's kind of like a leaf floating down to the ground.
All right. Now, we'll come to that in a second. I want to talk about the very end of the solo because this is neglected. Once we go into E major, by the way, question for the class, what key is this symphony in? E minor. So we've gone to E major, the relative, and this is right at the end of the fourth movement. The fourth movement, by the way, is just like a passacaille or something. It's basically a set of variations. But it's amazing that it goes into E major at this section. It's a really great moment. And you play the first note of the E major and then you stop. Who plays with you on that note? The French horns. What is the danger of playing with the French horn? We will be flat. So up, up, up. You're going to play that E sharper than you think it needs to be. The other thing I think really gives the impression of the solo coming to the end is to play with a very dark color at the end of the solo. Everyone lightens it off. I think go dark, 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 and then on that single little E with the horns, really pale and light. It's very effective. So you get this kind of I don't know how much you use on color changes and things, but it's very effective. And of course, then the orchestra takes it away, and you go, phew, you know, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's because that's a tense moment. But just try that little ending for me and see if you can darken it by going ah to the back of the teeth, ah, and then when it gets to the E after the E major section, ooh, forward in the mouth.
Do you want me to like start like halfway through 103 or something?
Yeah, that's
Or-
perfect. Yeah.
okay.
Very nice. Can we have a bit more lean? Da, ya, da, 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 da,
The
da.
D natural. Okay.
Those are written, I think, I have this rule where I've told this story before about my lecturer when I was an undergrad, Peter Innes, who told me about intelligent rubato. Have I told you guys this story about intelligent rubato? Okay, I'm not going to tell you today because it's a long story. But basically, if I see something loud coming up, I'll play the little bit before quieter to give the oral illusion that the bit that's loud is louder, and vice versa. If I see something really quiet coming up, and that can be hard on the flute, the bit immediately before, I'll just play a little bit louder, and then everyone goes, "Ooh, is quiet playing really good?" And it's the same with leans and color and any of this stuff. If you're going to try and do an effect, do more of the opposite before it, and then you'll get it. So when you have these diminuendos, to give the impression of the getting quieter, I would give the first note of the diminuendo more da 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 rather than da da. Do you know what I mean? It's not as effective.
So just for clarification, that's the beginning of 104, and it's mostly because I can tongue that D natural.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
don't tongue it
And
too
the
much.
other ones I have to slur into, so it's a little different.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't get too tied up on the tongue. It's still legato.
Okay.
Da,
Okay.
da, da, da,
But I could do more, I guess.
yeah, just do something. Just something.
Oh yeah. Yeah, do something. Okay. All right. All right. Let me sorry.
You're absolutely doing something now, and I love it. But the something is mostly vibrato.
I know. I know. All right,
Yes.
try it again. I'll try it one more time. Okay.
No vibrato on that note. The French horns aren't.
Oh,
Going,
no vibrato on the
yeah, the
okay.
French horns are not going to play with any vibrato.
That's true. That's true. Okay. I'm married to a French horn player. I should know these things. Okay.
Oh, have him play those notes. Practice this solo. Just get to go. He'll get. Find it on MSLP. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly how you have to fit in around it. It's kind of fun. Very nice. Very nice. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and I just want to show you the grand dog didn't bark.
Oh,
Yay!
what's
And
his-
I'm gonna mute now. Okay.
Great. We are quickly running out of time. I promised I would stick to time. Do you guys have any questions you want to ask about excerpts or anything else? The next class, as I say, is live in Charlotte, so that's going to be an open master class. The one after that, if I remember right, we're going to talk about Debussy's Syrinx. This is a piece that will come up over and over again in people's life. And it's also a great one just to play because it's unaccompanied, so you don't need a piano player. And it's got a great story. And I think I'll tell you all about my interpretation of the story and how that links and how I practice it. So it's not a piece, it's a class that, sure, if people, I'll definitely have volunteers to play if they want, but I've adapted these classes so we don't necessarily have to have volunteers to play, as you've probably seen. And after Syrinx, I have no idea what's going to happen. I will talk to Mark and Matthew. I have some ideas about what I want to do. but it's up to them at the end of the day. But does anyone ask anything now before we wrap this one up? No, absolutely nothing. Have I bored you all to tears? I'm very sorry if I have. Is anyone here not from America? No? Okay. Well, lovely to see you. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some new ones as well. Oh, hang on. We've got comments. Let me just quickly read. Oh, you're very welcome, Michelle. Thank you. Let me scroll up. Oh yeah, Mark wrote something very briefly about there is a great discount in Flute World. By the way, I love Flute World, but I'm not like an employee of Flute World, so I don't have to tell you all these things. But this is genuinely good, and I've just recently bought 2 piccolo books because my summer goal is to get good at piccolo because I'm really not very good at it. One of them was Nicola Mazzanti's piccolo method, whatever it's called, and the other one was this new book by Peter. What's the book called? I can't remember, Peter Varian. Anyway, I used the perk match code. So everyone use code perk match on the Flute World website and you'll get 15% off all music. Boom, what a great deal. So it's worth using, and you just type in perk match and it seems to take 15% off. So it's worth doing. I don't plug my book very often, but it's also available at Flute World, and I don't know what happens if you get 15% off my book. Do I still get paid? I don't know. We'll find out. I don't know. Actually, I don't even own the book anymore, so I don't get paid anyway. But yeah, my book's called The Flute Tune, by the way. That's a whole other thing. Maybe one day I'll do a class on the Flute Tune for Flute World. Anyway, thank you all so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I know these classes get put back on YouTube at some point. That's why they record them. So, and yeah, any questions, fire them across to me. You can get me on my social media and say, oh, from Finland, Matilda, great. Nice to have you here. And huge thanks to Regina for playing. It sounds beautiful. We really appreciate you coming to play. Have a great weekend, everybody. I'll see you, some of you in Charlotte, and then I'll see some of you on the next class in July. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.